Hey y'all, Zach McDonald, your real estate agent with Real Property Associates. In this video, we are going to talk about the Seattle real estate market seasonal slowdown. So is it a fact or a myth that the Seattle area housing market typically slows down every summer? I'll answer that with an affirmative. Yes, the Seattle area housing market does typically soften or slow down in the summertime. But why is that? Why does the housing market in the Seattle area typically slow down in the summer? Well, I think I've got a few ideas. Number one, Seattle is beautiful in the summertime. And the reason that many people live in the Pacific Northwest, and not just Seattle itself, but the Seattle area, is because of these beautiful summer months. Most of July, August, and September is glorious. The weather is mid to upper 70s, and it'll touch the 80s many weeks. And it's also relatively dry. So in a climate where we live in a place where it's mainly wet in the winter and spring and fall months, it's also very cloudy. We have sunny weather most of the days, and we have warm weather most of the days. So people are out taking advantage of the beautiful weather. People are also going to the local vacation spots because this is the time of the year you go and do those things. If you are heading over to Eastern Washington, there's a lot of sunshine over there as well, but it's hot. So people are enjoying the lakes and getting over to their vacation houses. In the winter months, though, people aren't traveling around locally as much. They're not hiking as much. So what you see is people doing things outside of their normal rhythm. I think another factor here is that school's out. So people are enjoying that time with their families. They're trying to capitalize on the more flexible schedule. I think across the country you're seeing that, but in Seattle, I think you see it even more so because the rest of the year, it's not quite as advantageous to go out on those vacations. Additionally, this time of year, we typically see the most amount of homes coming on the market. So just as many people are thinking about doing trips and going on vacations as they are about selling their house. It's the most beautiful weather. So the houses and the yards look great this time of year. And statistically speaking, we do see the most amount of homes coming on the market every single year in the late spring and the summer. So you have the most amount of homes on the market, and then you have a bunch of people that are maybe taking little breaks in their home search and they're going on trips, or maybe people that are delaying their home search and waiting until the fall because they're out exploring and enjoying the Pacific Northwest. So you kind of get this perfect storm every single summer, even though it's beautiful and you'd think that this would be the hottest time of the year, it's actually not. 2021 is no exception to this rule. Last year, 2020 was actually an exception to this rule because of COVID. There were a lot of people that delayed listing their house and delayed their home searches for completely different reasons. And they weren't going anywhere and they weren't traveling last summer. So people almost did the opposite. We saw a little bit of a abnormal spring and we saw a super hot summer, and that continued all the way through most of 2021 so far. But if we look at the trends again this year, we're seeing more similar trends to a traditional year. So 2021 is not an exception to the rule. So what we typically see in a given summer is we see more homes coming on the market and we see fewer buyers competing over homes. But as a buyer, does that really mean you're getting a discount? I've found that most summers, the housing prices are fairly comparable to the peak times of the year. Traditionally, somewhere between May and July is when you'd see the highest median sales price for the year, whether you're in Seattle or Bellevue, anywhere in King County or Snohomish County. It's fairly comparable. But those peak months pretty much track out over the summer. So even though there's a little less competition, and even though it seems like maybe you're getting a little bit more of a deal, you're not paying as much over the asking price in a competitive situation, we're still seeing house prices stay about the same. So as a buyer, this time of year, you're not necessarily getting a discount in the summer. It feels like it psychologically, but if you look back at the beginning of this year, we've seen home prices increase almost 20%, whether you're in King County or Snohomish County. And in any given year, a lot of that appreciation tends to happen at the beginning of the year. And then we see home prices usually remain a little bit more stable throughout the rest of the year. For buyers, the benefit to buying your house this time of year in the summer slowdown, so to speak, is that you have a lot more options. It's usually the highest inventory level, so there's the most amount of homes to choose from. You do have a little less competition, so you're able to secure that house and not miss out as many times, but you're still gonna be paying a good price for the house. You're still gonna be paying a relatively high price for the house in most years, but at least it's more transparent. You know what you're getting yourself into. It's not quite as much of a silent auction feel as you might experience in the spring. Now, I know this video isn't going to be relevant in a slower market. I know this video isn't going to be as relevant when there aren't multiple offers, but it'll always be relevant given the fact that it typically does slow down or mellow out in the summertime. For sellers, the seasonal slowdown doesn't mean that your house isn't going to sell. It doesn't mean that you're giving a discount to buyers when you list in the summer. It just means that your expectations need to be different. So my advice to sellers that need to or want to sell in the summertime is do it. It's a great time to sell your house, but we have to reframe your expectations, especially if we're in a hot market like we are right now in 2021 as I'm recording this video. The story is, oh my gosh, my neighbor got 20% over the asking price. They sold for $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000 more than the asking price, and I want to do the same. Well, the likelihood of that isn't as great in the summertime. However, you can most likely list your house for very similar numbers that they sold their house for, but you shouldn't expect to see that price jump. So you could get a similar price for your house. You just have to list with a little bit different pricing strategy. So I think the pricing strategy needs to be a little bit fluid as a seller. So that's my first piece of advice. Secondly, there are going to be fewer buyers. So I think you should expect less showings in the summertime than you would expect maybe in the spring when the peak amount of buyers are touring homes. But it doesn't mean you're not going to have a great result or get a great sales price. And as I'm recording this video, within the last few weeks, I've had multiple listings sell for way above the asking price. And I've also had multiple buyers in super competitive situations. So the seasonal slowdown is a thing, but it doesn't impact every property the same way. The hot homes are still hot homes. A lot of them are still receiving these multiple offers. Again, that's in a competitive market. The great homes are always attracting lots of buyers. There are certain homes, though, that maybe are a little more difficult to sell, not quite as ideal, don't appeal to as many buyers. And so those homes will favor better in the spring market or the most competitive time of year versus the summertime or even the wintertime where maybe there's just not as many people looking. And so those houses tend to have a little bit more difficulty selling when the market's not quite as hot. In conclusion, the Seattle real estate market does experience a seasonal slowdown most years, but it doesn't mean that it's not a great time to buy or sell real estate. It just means that it looks a little bit different. In conclusion, the Seattle real estate market does experience a seasonal slowdown most years, but it doesn't mean that it's not a great time of the year to buy a house or sell a house. And honestly, I think it might be the most transparent time to buy or sell a house, and maybe the smoothest time to do so. If you have questions about your situation or want to run things by me, feel free to reach out. And if you got a lot of value out of this video and you want to see more content like this on the Seattle area housing market, please consider subscribing to my channel.